All of these violent incidents create a society where women are not safe. Despite only looking at these three specific regions, gender-based violence, again, is a global issue which puts women at risk. Gender-based violence needs to be looked at as a whole issue and the various complexities it holds overall. Around the world, it is estimated that 35% of women worldwide have experienced either physical or sexual intimate partner violence or sexual violence by a non-partner at some point of their lives. Although we will only look at 3 countries, the impact of violence affects women around the globe. All of these violent incidents create a society where women are not safe. Gender-based violence is fueled due to the lack of justice and support women have access to. With women facing an unjust judicial system, lack of support services, and a safe haven to recover from the violence they have experienced, many choose to escape and migrate to a country that provides safety. FGM is an issue which specifically is a big issue in Africa. This procedure involves partial or total removal of the female genitalia or an injury to the female genitalia organ for non-medical reasons. In Africa, FGM practices affect young girls and appears to really have no age which one woman can become safe to undergo this procedure. According to a report by UNICEF, at least 200 million girls and women today have undergone FGM procedure in 30 countries. In most of these countries, the majority of the girls were cut before the age of 5. Many studies have been done to look at the long-term effects of this procedure, which are going to be much more severe than the short-term effects. Many women who have been victims of FGM discuss the severe pain, excessive bleeding, risk of infection, and issues with urination and paired with wound healing itself. As if these practices were not harmful enough, the psychological consequences are due to the severe concerns that women are not being put under or they're simply awake and conscious throughout this entire procedure. The reason why FGM is such a large issue in Africa is due to this being a very cultural generation practice that is being done throughout the country. There is also an element of which women must mask their sexual beings and the family honor. A lot of times, families who have young women or young girls who have done this have a better reputation in society versus those who do not. In the Middle East, during times of war, women are often used as weapons of war through manipulation, emotional and sexual torture, and even forced into marriage. Due to women having a holy and pure construct in society, women who are sexually assaulted are often shamed and rejected and disowned by their own family and society. For example, a report done by the UN Commission of Inquiry on Syria released horrifying accounts about ISIS being complicit in sexual assaults against Syrian women. According to this report, based on 452 interviews, a 29-page report found a widespread of abuse committed since March 15, 2011, which is the beginning of the uprising against the Syrian president. When a country is at war, it is much more hard to control extremism, and it is also that much more harder to provide protection into citizens. One of the biggest issues of why women are being used as a tool in the triangle countries of Central America, Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala, gang violence has taken over and become the new norm. This case is also very similar to the women in the Middle East. However, in Central America, they have the current highest rate of female gender-motivated killing of women around the world. Similar in domestic violence cases, there has been an increase of reports For example, reported cases in El Salvador of domestic violence has increased from 1,500 cases in 2000 to over 6,000 cases between 2009 and 2010. The rates of which women are being brutally murdered is due to the many gangs in the region forcing women to be taken into the gangs as a ransom. Part of the manipulation that is being done is this will ensure safety to their family, but then again, they are forced into a relationship which they may not want to be in. They are often stuck in a relationship. However, taking a deeper look at this means that there is a social construct of what feeds into of the manipulation. That is why women are a target in Central America, is due to family safety. However, the cultural dynamics between a man and a woman is that men are going to be the dominant people in a relationship. Now we will look at the risk factors associated with gender-based violence around the globe. One of the very common things is going to be the lower education and access to employment level. Second will be a past of violence, whether or not you experienced it or whether or not you were the perpetrator. The third is we're digging a little deeper and we're looking at the cultural beliefs, whether that's the ideological of the male entitlement or the family honor and the placement of purity on one's sexuality, especially as a woman. And fourth, we look at the weak legal sanctions for violence, but especially particularly looking at sexual violence, the consequences that women face as an end result. As you can see here, we have broken it down into 4 major categories: emotional, physical, social, and law and order. There is no way of separating these 4. Emotional, there is a very heavy placement on the emotional being that one takes. The physical, which is going to be, again, if a woman becomes pregnant due to a sexual assault, there is going to be risk factors involved in their pregnancy. However, one of the 2 biggest issues that we see that are going to be a big factor into whether or not a policy is going to be successful or not is going to be looking at the social impact, which means what is socially acceptable or not, but also how protective is a country going to be, whether that's through their immigration laws, whether that's through their protection laws. If a country does not have a strong foundation of law and order, there is no hope. So some policy recommendations is going to be, first and foremost, education within gender roles. There is no way that we can begin to address this issue if we do not provide education on what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, not only to women, but also to men. Second, one of the big surprising things is to improve the methods of data that we will have available, but also tracking in support of women coming forward. One of the big flaws in our policies today is that even though women do come forward, there is no proper way of tracking the assaults. The third will be the strengthening of social support services and mental health support. Social services are going to include wraparound services. So if a woman is able to go in and make a report, they will also do some kind of screening to look at other aspects of the woman's life. Maybe what makes the woman more susceptible to this? Is it because she has no housing, and so she has to house with somebody who is perpetrating the violence on her? So being able to really look at, the needs of the women and how to effectively provide guidance and support is going to be huge. Fourth is going to be the funding advocacy and NGOs focus on addressing these gender-based violence issues. One of the big things is being able to provide the government, which we will get to in a second. We are going to need to have people who are truly invested in the work, are on the ground doing the work, and are going to have the advocacy support to be able to address these issues specifically. And lastly, in order for any of these things to be a reality, is that we need to begin to hold our governments accountable to provide effective and, most importantly, preventative intervention and safety for victims. Unfortunately, if we truly want to begin to look at this issue from a systemic point of view, we need to have the government support with us. If there is not preventative interventions provided on behalf of the government in working with as you can see here, government is going to be the key in providing effective security, effective education, effective advocacy, data records, and social service support. There is no way that one can truly begin to address reducing gender-based violence, providing support, but also providing strong advocacy on behalf of some of the most vulnerable people in the world if these pieces are not strongly together.